American communities around the country are waking up to the need to regionalize our food production and distribution system. That right now it's all industrial foods being brought in from other countries. It's high mechanization methods of production rather than labor-intensive methods of production. And so communities around the country, many with state support, many with local support, many with foundation support, and many, on their own, are creating these centers that will, within their chosen food shed, and for me, it's like a play on watershed, for me a food shed is 200 miles. In fact, I think a successful food shed here could be even smaller than that. But within 200 miles, we have 40 million people. Within 100 miles, we have 14 million people. So within this concentric circle, you're basically saying, let's draw in food. In my case, I want to help Maryland farmers first. So let's draw in the produce from Maryland farmers. Let's aggregate it. So this person's 3 bucks of tomatoes, this person's 87 bucks of tomatoes, this person's quarter of a truck's worth of tomatoes. Put them together, aggregate them, and just have one person doing the marketing, doing the driving, doing the distribution, doing the sales. And so you're lowering the cost for each of those growers because it's shared costs. Obviously, no grower is going to want to take advantage of that hub that's going to aggregate and then sell and distribute within this 200-mile food shed, unless they're going to make more money than they were doing it themselves, or they're going to make the same amount of money with less effort, or both. And our hope is they're going to end up putting more money in their pocket, and they're going to have less work because they're not getting in the car and driving themselves. And we think we can give them more money in their pocket because of a couple things. One, we're going to be taking advantage of these economies of scale, right? So instead of Cleo driving to Woodbury Kitchen and Whole Foods with her Sprinter, that's a quarter full or third full or half full, you're driving with larger vehicles that are completely full. So you're taking advantage of economies of scale and distributing those costs. But we want to create jobs, right. Creating healthy food. The door is wide open for the state and for the growers in this state to be selling food to New York. And yet Delmarva, it's a great map, all the demographic centers in red and the green growing centers, and Delmarva's the green. Delmarva's the green. And I want us to fill that vacuum when people are starting to wake up all over the country and saying, we don't want food from Mexico and Canada and Florida and California, and we want food from Virginia, from Delaware, from North Carolina, from Pennsylvania. They're not getting it from Maryland. We've talked to the big guys, Fresh Direct. We've talked to Whole Foods. Maryland is underrepresented. We are behind the curve, and we can catch up. Another program is creating emerging farmers, supporting emerging farmers, because we need more. There's lots of young people who want to go into farming, and we want to make this, frankly, I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but we want to make this hip and cool. We want to attract younger people to our community. And if you doubt that we can attract young farmers to our community and keep the young ones and the offspring, the young generation here of current farming families, all you have to do is go to the Pennsylvania Sustainable Ag Conference or the Future Harvest Chesapeake Alliance for Sustainable Ag Conference. Both great organizations. One is covering Virginia and Maryland, one covers Pennsylvania. There's 2,000 young farmers. Yeah. I'm the old fogey in the room. And it's all folks in their 20s and their early 30s, and they're all looking for a place to land. The other thing that we want to support is the food insecure. So there's so many food deserts. There's 70, under the last census tract, there's 71 food deserts in Maryland. There's obviously a lot of them are in other Western Shore counties like Prince George's County, but there's a number of food deserts here. Where people don't have meaningful access to food, and they judge it by two things: the number of supermarkets and the access of folks to automobiles, so or transit. So we want to build this physical facility that, in its first phase, will be basically, it's like a 30,000 square foot facility. 15,000 of it is, quote, refrigerated because it's kept to like 50 degree, 48 degree, ambient temperature. There'll be walk-ins within it that are suitable for different humidity and temperature of crops. These 4 loading docks, one organic, one conventional, and we'd be aggregating. We'd be selling to places like Whole Foods and Harris Teeter and Fresh Direct, and we'd be selling to. We have a higher than normal concentration of schools and universities in Maryland and the Washington area. We have a higher than normal concentration of hospitals in the Baltimore, Washington area. All of these institutions, and then down to Richmond, up to New York. And so we'd be building that aggregation facility to be doing that. We'd have marketers who were in constant contact with these buyers, and we want to create an Eastern Shore brand. And then in the front half of this building is the space that farmers can use, the growers can use, but then also the public can use. So, for instance, there'd be these value-added production rooms. This is where it really gets interesting, because the public's already sold on processed. So they'll spend a lot of money on sauerkraut. Cabbage, not so much, or kimchi, or, sweet potato chips, or sauces. So there's these value-added production rooms where there's dehydrators to turn fresh beets and carrots and sweet potatoes into chips. So you have these healthy snacks. There's commercial kitchens to turn tomatoes into sauces, and melons into melon pops, and fermentation rooms to turn cabbages and other items into the pickled goods. And then the public can also rent these places also. The vacuum is going to be filled. The need for clean food, the need for fresh food, the need for vegetables is going to be filled. I want it to be filled by Marylanders. I don't want it to be filled by other countries and other states. And, this will show you how much more room we have to grow. Less than 2.5% of Maryland cropland, not farmland, but cropland, is in vegetables. I was farming for 5 years before I even realized that the specialty crop block grants of the USDA applied to me as a vegetable farmer. I assumed specialty crop was tobacco or andirons, or I don't know. I don't know what I thought it was, but I had no notion it applied to vegetables. That's how rare they are, and on how little ground they're grown. The farm was an important part of helping to, for a number of things. Number one, it would have housed many of our employees. There's a lot of infrastructure in place there. There would have been farming. It would have been field crops. It would have been greenhouse crops. There's a 40-acre industrial parcel, which would have been lovely to be using for animal processing, future phase. There's 26 pastured, beef cattle producers in Kent County alone, and there's not a lot of processing there. So it would be a good use of that industrial parcel. It's right in the town, backs to the town of Millington, and Millington could use some employment opportunities, both on the farm and in that facility. And it had, would have been the locus for a very aggressive, intensive apprenticeship program, where we would have brought up under a 2-year program, which is pretty intense, 3 to 5 apprentices a year. But it's jobs. And last time I checked, we need jobs. And last time I checked, we need jobs that are fulfilling, that combine art and science. I have great respect for farmers. It's hard work. It's a great combination of art and science. It's endlessly fascinating. And people can feel like they're a part of something really important, that they're growing food for their community to help make their community well again.